Hey guys, we are so close to being done, y'all. If we look at the remote learning guide, sorry, it's Monday for me, y'all. We have a really, I don't want to call it a short lesson because we only have 3 slides, but these slides are they're in depth. They definitely cover some information. They can be a little bit on the hard side for us to grasp. So I'm going to try to move slowly through it, try to explain things, and then y'all are going to have an assignment to go through on different heritability practices. So basically different things that farmers can do to try to improve their herd. This is going to be the last lecture for Animal Science 1. And then on Thursday, y'all are going to have some SchoolNet questions. I'll just post the link or the code on Edmodo. Y'all go through, complete that. We're going to be done, y'all. I'm so sad that our year is ending this way. We've had a really good year. But I hope I'll get to see you guys in Animal Science too. And if I don't, I'll get to see y'all in the hall. So moving on to the PowerPoint. Oops, I had Edmodo open. Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk about different heritability estimates, different traits, I guess we can call them, that are it's pretty likely that if we were to breed one animal with another animal, that we would hopefully see whatever trait it is that we're looking for. So heritability as a definition is the likelihood of a trait that's going to be passed on from the parent to the offspring. So for example, if your parents have brown eyes, if both of your parents have brown eyes, you have a very high likelihood of being born with brown eyes. That's a trait that has a very high heritability estimate. But on the other end, if your parents have brown eyes, I'm trying to think. I want to say you have like a 0% chance of having green eyes, and then like maybe like a 10 or 20% chance of being born with blue eyes. So basically, if your parents have brown eyes, it's almost a guarantee that you are going to have brown eyes. Both of my parents have brown eyes. I was born brown eyes. My younger sister, though, she was born with blue eyes. And until I learned about genetics, I was just like part of me was like, how is she my sister? Like, all my parents, brown hair, brown eyes. My sister, blonde hair, blue eyes. And I'm like, what's going on here? But it is possible. It's not very highly likely that my sister was born with blue eyes, but it did happen. Heritability estimates, typically they're going to range from 0%, meaning this is not a trait that you can pass on from one animal to another, to 70%, which is like super, super highly likely that this trait is going to be passed on. So think brown eyes. Parents have brown eyes, super, super likely that the baby is going to be born with brown eyes. If a trait is highly heritable, closer to the 70%, meaning it's very likely going to be passed on, then the producer is going to see improvements very quickly. Then obviously something that has a low heritability estimate. Because that's math, that makes sense. Something that has a 70% chance of happening is going to happen a lot quicker than something that has a 10% chance of happening, right? So here are some examples of heritability estimates that are commonly used with livestock producers, typically cows and pigs. When we talk about heritability estimates, it's more than likely going to be about cows and pigs. Birth weight is a really common one. Birth weight has a 40% heritability estimate. That's pretty good. If you think about like the previous slide, heritability estimates vary from 0 to 70%. 40% is like right in the middle. So it's a pretty good chance. It's almost a 1 in 2 chance that this is going to happen. Birth weight's really important for livestock producers because, one, a baby with a cow or a pig or whatever it is that's born with a high birth weight, has a higher chance of continuing living. Think of like babies that are born premature. They have a very difficult time outside of the NICU. Part of that is because of how little bitty tiny they are. Birth weight, an animal being born heavier, helps to increase their chances of continuing living. Birth weight's also important because a high birth weight typically means, think like big baby equals big adult, because that's kind of how things typically happen. So if you're raising animals like cows or pigs where you want a very big animal, and a baby that's born with a high birth weight is more than likely going to grow to an adult with a high regular weight. And typically that's going to mean more money. Weaning weight has about a 25 to 30% chance, so it's got an okay heritability estimate. The lower percentages that we see here, it doesn't mean that it's impossible to breed these things in. It just means that it's going to take a long time. You're going to see an increase in your animal's birth weights before you're going to see an increase in their weaning weights, because this percentage here for birth weight is higher than the percentage here for weaning weight. Both are going to be happening, but birth weight's going to be happening quicker than weaning weight is. Weaning weight, when an animal is weaned, that means that it's going from drinking its mother's food or drinking its mother's milk to eating whatever animal food it should be. So a piglet is going to go from drinking its mother's milk to eating the pig food. So weaning weight has about a 25 to 30% heritability estimate. Not bad, it's just going to take a little bit longer than probably most people would like. But farming is all about patience. Yearling weight, again, we want these animals to be big. We want them to weigh a lot. Yearling weight has a very high heritability estimate. You're going to see this very quickly. If you breed two animals that have high yearling weights, then more than likely, like very much more than likely, their offspring at 1 year old is going to weigh more than the rest of the animals in the herd at 1 year old. And then again, high birth weight typically is going to mean a higher yearling weight, and it's typically going to mean a higher adult weight, which is typically going to mean more money. Then we have fertility. This is a pretty low heritability estimate. Again, it's possible, but don't get in a rush. This is going to take some time. Fertility has a pretty low heritability estimate. For things that have a low heritability estimate, more than likely what's going to end up happening is, rather than sitting here and waiting to bring up your herd's heritability for fertility, in this example, you're just going to go buy a cow or buy a pig that's fertile, or whatever the trait it is that you're looking for. So fertility just means that this animal if it's a female, she's very easy to get pregnant, because not all animals get pregnant on the first try. Sometimes it takes a couple rounds. Like when I was at NC State and I was working on the pig farm, we artificially inseminated pigs. Not all of them got pregnant the first time around, because that would just be crazy to think. Sometimes you would have to go and they would have to be artificially inseminated 2 or 3 times. And a lot of times if it took more than that, then off to the market they went. You want animals that they have a high fertility because they're easier to get pregnant. You're not having to spend all these time and resources to take care of an animal that isn't giving you what you need. Because at that point, it's kind of like a pet. So for females, it's that they can easily get pregnant. For males, it's that they produce viable sperm. Not all male animals produce sperm that is, we'll say, I guess, correct. Sometimes they can be a little bit deformed. Sometimes it can be like a temperature issue. Think about when we learned about reproductive anatomy. What is the job of the scrotum? To keep the testicles at a certain temperature so that they can continue producing sperm. If the temperature gets too high or too low, the sperm count is going to go down and the sperm anatomy is going to become deformed because it's just not at the right temperature. Some male animals, that's just something that they naturally do. They don't produce viable sperm, meaning they don't have a high fertility. So these pigs, they're probably not going to be used for breeding, because why would you use the pig for breeding that is going to struggle to get other pigs or cows pregnant? You're not. You're going to go find a pig that already does what it needs to. It has viable sperm, or it easily gets pregnant. Fertility, you can increase it in your herd through breeding, but it's going to be pretty difficult. If you have pigs that are already good breeders, then you're just going to use those until you can't, until you need to get new pigs. And even when you have to go get new pigs or start using new pigs, you're going to use the pigs that already have a history of being good at breeding. And then our last common trait is going to be tenderness. You don't want to have to sit, if you order a steak or a pork chop or whatever it is at the restaurant, you don't want to sit here and have to like gnaw and gnaw and gnaw and gnaw and gnaw. And you're like, you finally get your food chewed up enough that you can swallow it without choking. You're like, wow, that took a long time. This is not an enjoyable experience. You want food, you want meat that is going to essentially melt in your mouth. You want it to be very, very tender. Thankfully, tenderness has a really high heritability estimate. Tenderness, it refers to in part to like the fat ratio. When the steak is cooked, that fat, that marbling should, if it's good marbling, it should dissolve throughout the steak, and that helps to make it more tender. There's a plane flying right over my house. This is nice. Okay. I don't have to yell too much right now. I live really close to an airport right now, by the way. Like I said, thankfully, tenderness has a really high heritability estimate. Producers, they keep extensive breeding records. What animal bred this animal? What animal did they breed like 2 years ago? What animal did they breed a month ago? Like, they keep very extensive records so that they can determine how things are going. So if they have an animal that's known for like producing tender meat, its offspring like are great, then okay, we're going to continue using that animal. And then when we can't use that animal anymore, we're going to use one of its offspring, because its offspring are known for its tenderness. Heritability estimates for traits in beef cattle, are normally going to be higher than the traits in swine. So let me back up and give an example. Birth weight, 40%, or actually let me do weaning weight since it already gives me a range. Weaning weight. That bullet on that slide we were just at said that the traits or the estimates for traits in cattle are normally going to be higher than the same trait in swine. So this weaning weight right here, cattle could have a 30% heritability estimate for weaning weight, whereas swine, pigs, could have a 25% heritability estimate for weaning weight. It's not going to be like terribly far off, but heritability estimates, those percentages are normally going to be higher in beef cattle than they're going to be in swine. Then heritability traits are usually higher for carcass quality traits rather than reproduction traits. This just means that the percentages, the heritability estimates are normally going to be higher. The percentages are going to be higher in traits that refer to carcass quality. So, tenderness. This is a carcass quality trait. Other carcass quality traits can be like the ribeye area, the yield grade. Those are carcass traits. Typically, carcass traits are going to have a higher heritability estimate than those traits that are related to reproduction. So traits that are related to reproduction are like the number of offspring born. The number of offspring born are normally going to have a slightly lower heritability estimate in comparison to those carcass quality traits. It's easier to improve the babies than it is to improve the mother, because the carcass quality traits, those are things you are giving to the babies. You are breeding in good carcass quality. You're breeding in tenderness. You're breeding in ribeye area to the offspring. Whereas reproductive traits, they're coming strictly from the mother. The number of offspring born coming strictly from the mom. So it could be really easy if the mom has good reproductive traits. Or it could be difficult if the mom doesn't have great reproductive traits. Like the number of offspring, that's just coming from the mom. Dad doesn't have a whole lot of control over that. It all just refers to how many eggs is the mom going to be ovulating. If she doesn't normally ovulate a lot of eggs, she's not going to have a lot of offspring. And that's going to be a reproductive trait that may be more difficult to try to manage. It may have a lower heritability estimate than for things like that ribeye area trait or the tenderness carcass trait. For traits that have a low heritability estimate, a lot of times producers, while they're going to be trying to improve them through reproduction, they're also going to be trying to improve them through the environment. When we talk about improving things through the environment, we're talking about changing some of the things in the animal's surroundings. So this could be like giving them automatic waterers so that you can ensure that they always have water and that water is always clean. We've got some other environmental traits on the next slide. It's just things that you're going to be trying to improve around the animal as opposed to things like directly on the animal. How can you change the animal's environment to make things easier for them? And then traits with high heritability estimates are going to be improved through selective breeding and environmental improvements, but primarily through selective breeding. What's the best way you can get good ribeye area or tenderness? Yeah, part of it is through environmental improvements, such as feeding the animal really good food. The other part of it is breeding animals that have tender meat already. So for y'all's assignment, I'm just gonna go ahead and open it up. It seems kind of long, and that's just because I'm trying really hard to go through and explain it, because this assignment, it can be a little bit difficult to grasp, but y'all just give it your best try. What y'all are gonna do is you're gonna think of different traits. It can be some traits that we talked about today. It can be other traits that we didn't really cover today that are important to livestock producers. And they're gonna things that are gonna be bred from a heritability standpoint. Some examples that you could be thinking about are fertility. That was one of the traits we talked about today. Cow maternal ability. Like, is this cow naturally a good mom? Some cows, some animals, they have babies and they don't recognize those babies as their own and they don't take care of them. If you're breeding animals, that's not something you want in a mother animal. So this is a really good example of something that probably has a low heritability estimate. It's hard to breed into animals. So this is something that could be improved through environmental factors. How can you make a mom cow be a better mother? Well, you could give her somewhere separate that she can go and have her calf. Give her her own little stall when she's about to give birth, so that when she gives birth, it is just her and her baby in there. It's just them two. That can help push that realization that, hey, this is my baby and I need to take care of it. She's also going to be producing milk. So having that calf suckle from her, drink her milk, is going to help her to kind of make that connection that, hey, this is my baby. Hey, there's a lot of pressure in my udders. What makes my udders feel better? When the baby calf drinks from my udders. And that kind of trigger that maternal instinct to say, hey, this calf makes me feel better, so I think I should keep it around and take care of it. Fat thickness is also an example. This would be a good carcass quality, a good carcass trait example. Birth weight, yield grade, ribeye area, the number of offspring bred. There's all little, I put descriptions in here for you guys. So your job is going to be to go through the table that's on the next page with traits that have a high likelihood of being inherited and a low likelihood of being inherited. The table is also going to be split between environmental conditions and selective breeding techniques. So again, environmental conditions refer to things that you can change around the animal to make them or to help them improve whatever trait it is. What are things you can change about the animal's environment to make them better producers? And then selective breeding techniques refers to things that you can change or do to the animal itself or its offspring. So traits that you're going to be specifically trying to breed into your other animals. A good example of this, I'll go ahead and scroll down, is a farmer buys a small frame, lightweight, not very muscled bull from his neighbor because it was cheap. He's trying to save some money. That's a pretty good farming practice, but buying a small, not very muscled bull for breeding is not a very good idea. Why is it not a good idea? Because muscling and size are things that have a very high likelihood of being inherited. They have a high heritability estimate. This is not a good farming practice because the bull is small and doesn't have a lot of muscle. Therefore, its offspring are going to be small and not have a lot of muscle because that's just kind of how things work. The producer should have purchased a large, well-muscled bull if they wanted to improve their herd. So this is not a good selective breeding technique. So this goes under the negative practices side. Something that a farmer does that doesn't necessarily help out their animal. I'll scroll back up. The table is split between positive traits, so traits and practices that are likely to be inherited, are likely to help the farm, and negative traits or practices that are not likely to be inherited or not likely to help the farm. So that man trying to save his money, yeah, that helps the farm. But the bull that he purchased is not going to help his breeding. It's not going to help him to make money in the long run. A bull is an investment. So even though he didn't spend a lot of money on that bull, he's not going to make a lot of money off of that bull's offspring. So you need to try to come up with one of your own for each other square. There's 4 squares that you need to go in and complete. You need to come up with one other answer yourself. Some things that you can talk about. So we've got environmental conditions. Environmental conditions are right here. I gave you 2 examples. So a positive practice for environmental conditions are that you give your animals automatic waterers. Because this makes animal care easier. For one, you don't have to consistently come out and like fill up their waters. And some animals are scared of automatic waters. So you having those animals or breeding those animals isn't really going to help your farm. So you want to have animals that aren't afraid of the waters. Animals that aren't afraid of the waters are going to get their water from there. And by getting their water from there, you can ensure that 1, the water they're drinking is clean. And 2, the water that they're drinking, they're drinking enough water. They're actually drinking the water. A not so good, a negative practice for environmental conditions, something that you're changing around the animal, is just saying like, meh, there's a pond out back of the farm. The cows can just go get their water from there. Why should I spend money and get them automatic drinkers? They're just gonna drink from that pond back there. Okay, your animals can drink from back there, but it's very likely that your animals that drink from back there are gonna end up getting internal parasites because that water is not clean. And the animals are probably gonna pee and poop in that water. They're gonna spread internal parasites. They're gonna get internal parasites from drinking that nasty, dirty water. This is another reason that automatic drinkers are a positive practice. And then for selective breeding techniques, we already went over this one. In our first example, both of these guys are trying to find a bull for breeding for their farm. The guy from the not so good farm decided that he wants to save some money and he's gonna buy a cheap bull. Well, his cheap bull is small and doesn't have a lot of muscle. And we know isn't gonna make him a lot of money in the long run. But our guy at the good farm, at the positive practices farm, before he decides to buy a bull, he decides to attend a meeting that's going to help to explain to him how he can get the best bull for his farm. What does the best bull look like? So this ends up helping the farmer learn how to select the best bulls for breeding so that he can improve his herd. So y'all need to go through and come up with one other example, one other good environmental change that you can bring to your farm. One change that you can bring to your farm that probably isn't going to do a whole lot of good. This column is going to be the things that as a farmer you want to avoid. One thing that a farmer might do, thinking it's going to help him or his farm, and it doesn't. This farmer thought that letting his animals drink out of the water was going to help him. It's probably not. And then 2 things related to selecting animals or breeding animals that is going to help the farm and probably not help the farm. This guy thought he was going to help his farm by not spending a lot of money on a bull, but that's not going to help him. This guy went to a meeting to learn how to purchase the best bull, and this is going to help him to actually be able to purchase the best bull. So I need to go through, complete one other example for each square. You can use these examples that I've got here. I encourage you to come up with your own. I encourage you to come up with more than one for each block, but you need to have at least one per block. Some examples that you can use for environmental conditions are temperature. That's something that a farmer can try to control. How much light his animals are getting. The altitude. Does it help to produce animals in the mountains, or does it help to produce them in a valley? The humidity. Can you control the humidity? And will one help and one not probably help? Controlling disease, feed supply, how much or what are you feeding your animals? And then some selective breeding traits are going to be like weaning weight, fertility, tenderness, the number of offspring, ribeye area, birth weight. These are just some examples for selective breeding traits. The environmental conditions refer to the things around the animal. And the selective breeding traits refer to things that directly affect or come from an animal. Let me know if you have any questions. Give it your best try. Like I said, this is our last lecture. And I miss you guys a lot. On Thursday, I'll post some school night questions. And after those school night questions, we're done. Y'all made it through. Congrats. Thanks for sticking with me. Let me know how it is that I can help you guys. If you plan on taking Animal Science 2 next year, then please remember that you are going to have to do an actual SAE project. Not the paper pencil kind that we did this year that focused on career research, like the kind that you probably did in agri-science applications. You need to build something, improve something, start a business, work or volunteer somewhere. Start sending me your ideas for what you want to do for your SAE project on. You can do your SAE project this summer and it will count. You just have to document it and I have to approve it. If you have no idea what you want to do for your SAE project, then the teachers, the ag teachers, we're going to be offering things that you can do this summer with us, virtually or in person if we're going to be allowed, but probably just virtually. that you can do this summer to go and get your SAE out of the year, or out of the way for the entire year. You'll have your SAE done. You'll just have to do some journals, and that's gonna be it. You'll be done. If you're interested in doing your SAE this summer, there is a Google form that I posted, I think last week, that you can go through and you can complete. You can mark like what you're interested in, what your ideas are, that kind of deal. Let me know what questions you guys have. Miss you guys. Reach out. Let me know how things are going. Love you guys. Take it easy.